pretty spiritual. So you've decided that you want to explore spirituality, so you look online and suddenly you're inundated with information about crystals, tarot cards, meditation, and a whole load of other things.
So where do you actually start? Today we're breaking down how to build a spiritual practice that fits into everyday life without making it complicated. Hi, I'm Shay.
And I'm Amy.
And welcome back to another episode of Pretty Spiritual.
So, hun, what actually is a spiritual practice?
So a spiritual practice is any regular activity, I would say, or ritual that you do to connect with yourself, something greater than yourself, the universe, nature, anything like that.
Okay, so what does a spiritual practice actually involve?
So a spiritual practice I would say there's 4 key pillars for a spiritual practice, and that would be intentionality, so your intention, consistency, connection and grounding, and self-transformation.
So what sorts of things could people do to create a spiritual practice?
So first of all, there's the intentionality. So you're setting an intention. So things are done consciously, not self-consciously on autopilot. So that's the first pillar. The second would be consistency. So it's something that you're almost doing on a ritual basis, whether it be daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, or with natural cycles, moon cycles, things like that. I'm very much a seasonal and moon cycle type person, so I follow the wheel of the year. I know obviously you have a lot more of a daily practice that you do as well, and there is stuff I do daily, but it's about finding kind of what works with you. And then the third would be connection and grounding. So it's about making time to step away from all of the noise of daily life, check in with your internal self, and kind of feel at one with the practice that you are doing. Fourth is self-transformation. So over time, you're going to be getting a lot more self-awareness, a lot more clarity. You're going to see yourself change because you've stuck with those 4 pillars. And naturally, you're going to build up some emotional resilience.
I think that's really well explained. And I think, like you say, something that's really important is kind of the consistency. And I think the more that you do something, the more it becomes part of your kind of ritual and your day to day. And like you say, with the transformation piece, I suppose it's like anything, the more that you do something, sort of the better that you get at it, and the more that you get out of it as well. And I think for somebody who's a beginner, you might create a practice, and in the beginning it might feel really uncomfortable, really alien. You might feel like you're not really getting a lot from it. I think what's really important is trying to stick at it and seeing how you feel after doing it a number of times. And you might find that you start getting a lot more from it.
100%.
You could find that you're not really getting much from it, and in which case you need to look at developing a different practice as well, because it has to feel right for you. So I think something that's really important for people to know is it's not uncommon that when you start it, you just feel a bit like, what am I actually doing, and what am I actually meant to be getting from this? And I don't really feel anything, and I'm not, do you know what I mean? I think sometimes it can take time.
I've got a really good example of this, and you would have gone through this when you did your Reiki training, me with my second. So you know when you do your level 1 and you have to do the 30 days of self-healing, I remember coming away, when you're in the environment of training, you're like, wow, okay, so much energy is flowing, this is great. But when you're on your own, it's very, very different because, and the first time I lay down to do my 30 days, because you can't move on to level 2 until you've done that, it was so alien to me. I was like, am I doing this right? But then as the days keep going, because you're creating a ritual of doing this and you're becoming more familiar with what you're doing, you start to see the transformation in the work that you're doing. So that's a really good example. It's like anything though. If I want to take the spirituality element out of it, skincare. If you're consistent with skincare, your skin improves.
Definitely.
So if you decide you want to start running, and you start off really slow, and then by 30 days or however long, I don't know, I don't run, you realise you're getting better each time.
Definitely.
That is we'll go with the word better, but yeah, you start to see a transformation in that skill set, I guess.
Exactly. It is like training, of any kind. And like you say, it's a transformation rarely happens overnight or in a few weeks. It is that consistency piece. And I think back to what you were just saying there around with when you start doing self-healing, for example, I think part of it is getting out of your head and, instead of thinking, really feeling into something. And I think that can be said for any kind of spiritual practice. A lot of it is, as you've mentioned, about kind of getting out of your head and coming back into your body. And that in itself is something that we don't do that often as, busy people with busy lives. So once you start practicing that and you start getting kind of better or improving or finding it slightly easier to feel rather than think, that's when the kind of transformation starts happening as well.
Completely agree. And there's lots of different types of spiritual practice, and it's not a one size fits all. There's things that you do that don't suit me and I don't enjoy, and vice versa. So if I wanted to talk through the types, I guess the first one, which everybody would be familiar with, is the kind of contemplative stillness. So that's stuff like your meditation. And I'm not great at meditating whatsoever. I know you're a lot better at it than me.
Only with practice, I would say. But again, you have to be in the right frame of mind.
But then other things that would fit into that would be things like breathwork, which I can do, and it is enjoyable. Prayer, if people do pray. Stillness. Not very good at that myself, personally. So that might not work for everybody. But that is one type, I guess. And then the next one would be like reflective, expressive. So what would fall into that would be like the somatic movement that you do, which I can't physically make myself do. And unless I've had like a couple of wines or something like that, which at that point it isn't spiritual.
It's not somatic movement.
It's just really alcohol-infused movement. But that would also be something like journaling or expressive writing or shadow work, which is something that I am comfortable with doing. And I know a lot of people shy away from shadow work. But as I said, you like the somatic movements and really kind of feel into your spiritual practice with that.
Definitely. I think it's, it's what people feel drawn to, isn't it? I think that's the thing. Some people love writing, other people hate it. So the idea of journaling probably is appealing to some and not for others. I think the other way that you can journal is to record your voice and to actually speak is another way of journaling. And I've heard more and more people talk about this online recently, and it's so true, because sometimes in order to sort of get your thoughts, feelings, everything out, if the idea of sitting down with pen to paper is just not for you, you can literally just do an audio recording.
I feel like I would love that, because I'm the type of person, if I send you a voice note, I'm playing back my own voice note like twice.
Literally.
Love the sound of my own voice.
Yeah, it's true. And I think sometimes it's because you can just express yourself more freely, more authentically. It's a really good way of getting things off your chest.
I love that idea.
Out of your heart. It's a good way of
my voice memo is just going to be like, wow. Because when I get a journal out, I'm like Regina George in like Mean Girls. I'm so angry. I'm like, oh wow, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, it's a good way of doing things, and it's a really good way of off topic slightly, but when you're looking to manifest things as well. So I've been doing a lot of manifesting this past week, and one of the ways that I've done that, as well as I have done some journaling and some writing, but is I have done some audio recordings, and I've set myself specific dates of when I want to listen back to these audio recordings as well.
About this.
Yeah,
like
so
at some point.
Yeah, definitely. So again, it's another way of kind of connecting.
Love that. We will have a conversation about that. So the next one would be energy. So this would be stuff like your energy healing. So your Reiki, your Sekhem healing, stuff like yoga, sound baths, massage therapy would all fall into that. So Indian head massage.
Absolutely love it.
ASMR.
Absolutely love that too.
That would fall under that category. Obviously, we've spoke a lot about energy healing, haven't we, in past episodes? So it's it's not necessarily something, I guess, that people could do on a daily, weekly basis. I mean, I would love to.
Yeah.
But more of like a monthly basis. And I know we've spoke about kind of hygiene, and once a month we get like healing and whatnot. So
definitely. I think there's probably two different categories. I think if you're looking to introduce your own spiritual practice, which is something that you can do yourself at home or wherever you happen to be, whether that's daily or weekly.
Body scans.
I think the key would be to really start simply with a body scan if you were looking at energy work, but I think probably something more simple. And then I think when you're looking at maybe enhancing your spiritual practice, or you're adding extra things in, that's perhaps when you would look at things like, you know, monthly energy healings or things like that. Because I think when you're first starting out, it can become, you know, you can feel easily overwhelmed with all of the information online and thinking that you need to do X, Y, Z, thinking that you need to...
I must go find a sound bath immediately.
Yeah, thinking that you need to do monthly sound baths and monthly energy healings. And then sometimes that can just be really overwhelming, and then you procrastinate and then you do nothing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really best to start with something that is really simple, that you can literally do by yourself wherever you are, whether you're at home, on holiday, or, you know, whatever it might be, that isn't going to take loads and loads of time. Like, I suppose what you're doing is removing the barriers. You know, the more barriers that you put in place, the less likely you are to do it or to even start. So I think starting simple is really important, and then building from there.
Agree. So the next one would be ritual and earth-based. So this is stuff like working with crystals, following cycles. So whether it's the wheel of the year, whether it's lunar cycles, things like that. Seasonal, I guess. Includes stuff like gardening and ancestral work as well, which that's this whole category is very much a lot of my practice, to be quite honest. Like, I'm very earth-based and ritualistic, and I obviously work with the elements quite a lot. As we've said previously, I'm always setting fire to things. Working with crystals, so I would say that is a lot of my practice, and I think a lot of people associate spiritual practice with that, a lot of that. So I must have the crystals, I must do this, I must be sat in the garden talking to the earth, etc. And we talk about grounding by being barefoot. So that's that category. And then the last category I would say is things like divination and etc. So working with tarot, astrology, what else would fall? Oracle. Dream analysis is another one. So people like to kind of divinate from their dreams and journal on that. I'm trying to think what else would fall into that category. Yeah,
I feel like there's so many different ways of starting a spiritual practice, and it's really just going for whatever you feel drawn to, isn't it? We say this so much, but it's so true. It's following your intuition and experimenting, thinking about what it is that, you know, what is it that's made you want to start a spiritual practice? What do you envisage that looking like? And what small step can you take literally now to implement that, even if it's just a 5-minute practice?
And I know of a girl who, I know a girl, and she is spiritual in the sense of not like full woo woo, but she is spiritual, and she believes in like the power of crystals, and her spiritual practice is literally every single day using her intuition to pick out a few crystals to put in her bra, and that's what she does every single day. She's not obviously as deep into it as like some like us or whatnot, but that's her spiritual practice, and she's done it for years. So, and we've already said it, something like that or something different that's small. Starting small is the best way to go. You don't need to have the whole spiritual toolkit straight away. It's about finding what works for you, as you've just said.
Yeah.
Slowly, and building that practice so it's sustainable, because I think a lot of people nowadays see on social media, oh, this, I must have this for a spiritual practice. I must have all the crystals. I must have all of the cards. I must have multiple pendulums and whatnot.
Yeah.
And go to sound baths and just be. I think that becomes very overwhelming, and it is not sustainable, and it can just all collapse. So,
Yeah.
as you've said, start small, find what works for you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
So, Hun, I have a question for people that are probably just starting out or unsure of their practice. How do you know that a spiritual practice is actually resonating with you? Because I know a lot of people probably will go through something like imposter syndrome, or, just feel like, okay, am I doing this right? Or so on.
Yeah. So, like we've mentioned, I think to begin with, it's so normal to feel imposter syndrome. It's so normal for the thing that you're doing to feel quite uncomfortable, especially if it's something that you're doing for the first time.
Yeah.
For example, if you've decided that you're going to start trying to meditate for 10 minutes a day or journal for 10 minutes a day, if this is something that's completely new to you, you're probably going to think, well, what am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to be feeling? Am I doing it right? All of these thoughts are completely normal. That's where your intention really comes in. So set your intention of, why is it that I'm actually doing this? What is my intention for this practice? Do the practice. See how you feel afterwards. Maybe actually make a note of how you feel afterwards, and then continue with that practice for a set amount of time. I would say at least 21 days. I would try and commit to a practice. And then at the end of that 21 days, see how you feel and whether you feel like that is actually resonating.
Yeah.
Like, have you got anything from it? Have you noticed anything, not just within the practice, but with how you're feeling in the rest of your day? For example, if you've been meditating for 21 days, have you felt like in your day-to-day you feel more connected with yourself? Do you feel calmer? Do you feel like it's had an impact on how you're showing up in your day-to-day? Like, what changes have you noticed or haven't you noticed within that period? And then really just reflect on that. If you find it's become like a burden and something that you don't enjoy, perhaps try a different practice. If you feel like you're getting something from it, even if it's something small, then perhaps continue with it. So it's kind of just checking in and really just seeing whether or not it is resonating. I think being really realistic about the transformation that you're expecting, even after 21 days, you might not see a huge transformation, but if you notice, actually, I do feel more present in my day to day, I do feel a bit calmer, I do feel a bit more connected with myself, even if it's just slightly, perhaps that's something that actually is benefiting you, that is resonating for you, that you want to continue with. So it's kind of just using your own, your own internal compass really to guide whether you want to continue with something or whether you want to try something different, or if you just want to like tweak things slightly. But the main thing is, it's not many people start something and get results immediately. You do have to be consistent, put the time in, and then review after that point.
Agree completely. Love that. Thanks for that, Hun.
Perfect. So, Hun, what closing comments and advice do you have for our listeners who are listening along and they're really keen to get started with a spiritual practice?
A spiritual practice does not have to be complicated. It just has to mean something to you and allows you that time to connect with yourself. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree.
Yeah. And I would just say to anyone, choose one practice Try it out for 21 days, 7 days if you want. But 21 days is a good rule of thumb to see if it works for you. And come back to us and tell us how it worked out.
Yeah, we want to hear all about it. We want to hear what's worked, what hasn't worked. That would be amazing.
It'd be really good to hear about other people's spiritual practices as well that are already, if there's people out there that already have them in place, what those look like.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Pretty Spiritual.
If you've enjoyed hanging out with us, then don't forget to like, subscribe and follow along on our platforms to be the first to receive any updates.
Join us next Tuesday for another episode of Pretty Spiritual.
Pretty spiritual.